Alrighty, boogie woogie oogie, my dudes. I posted this on Instagram initially, and I just thought it'd be more interesting instead of posting a top 50. If you guys really want a top 50 instead of the top 5, let me know. But I just thought it'd be more interesting to do a little bit more in depth as to why I respect my top 5 especially. I think I have one obvious outlier in my top 5, but the rest are pretty much common top 5 candidates, I feel. I'm putting the outlier in the top 5 at 5, purely because I think it needs to be acknowledged now especially, because I think maybe over time it might not be acknowledged as much as it should, especially as more people start dipping out of the game and when I think it's really important to acknowledge Mac Miller. Mac Miller is my number 5 greatest rapper of all time. If you look at what he's done and what Eminem has done, I think it's comparable. I know that's going to be controversial to say. I think Eminem obviously did numbers and did more to the popularity of the game. I think Mac Miller got a whole different audience into hip-hop that Eminem didn't, which is why I think it's on a near comparable level. I mean, for the most part, anybody who was anybody went through Mac Miller to make a song. Another side note though, but I love how the family has been treating his music post-death. No new music, only old music being put on the platforms. Exactly the way I want to go with Mac, because platforms are more forever than like something like that Piff and something like SoundCloud, where you could find most of his old music. If you just start putting more stuff that already exists on streaming platforms, people will go and stream it. I don't want to hear leftovers upon leftovers, similar to the way how X's family has been treating his releases. Sometimes I'd rather hear the old shit than the new shit. But if you look at kids, obviously that put Mac Miller on the map. I think certain standout tracks like The Spins, Knock Knock, Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, his YouTube run is pretty understated. He went from this kid who was buying plays on YouTube to on the XXL cover after, I think Kids, he was on the XXL cover. So you figure Kids was 2013. You know what, they were late on Mac. The Suburbs was on Mac in 2010 for sure. Was it Macadelic? Oh no, it's like Blue Side Park. Yeah, it was Blue Side Park and Macadelic. You gotta acknowledge Blue Side Park though. Kids puts Mac Miller on the map. He doesn't have very many features on it. Doesn't work with very many people. Got Best Day Ever, which I'm like whatever to me, to be honest. But I mean, every Mac Miller album has that standout track. Like there's always at least one. Blue Side Park's got like Fifth Ave. Blue Side Park's got Under the Weather. Good track. I think young Mac Miller isn't maybe as good as older Mac Miller. I honestly think Mac Miller is one of those people that as he aged, he got better. Obviously, he got put on the map when he made Kids, and Kids came out in high school. He was a high school senior, I believe, and he was making music that was mainstream. Like that's a huge change in pace to try to handle, and he was very good at building his personality as well as his music, which is now a huge part of rap, thanks to people like Tyler the Creator. But people like Tyler the Creator had Mac Miller and his like MTV collabs and stuff like that to pave the door and open a way for artists to have a little bit more longevity just because of who they are. For me, after Blue Slide Park is when Mac actually starts getting in a little bit of a stride. I'm obviously counting I'm not counting like mixtapes and everything. If I go on that Piff though, which I will, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Kids is platinum, or no, Kids is diamond on that Piff, I think. Yeah, it's diamond. Best Day Ever is diamond. Faces though is my favorite Mac Miller project. That came out right after the XXL cover, so like 2014. That's got like Schoolboy Q, Earl, Sir Michael Rocks. Shout out Sir Michael Rocks. I don't know what he's doing right now, but dude was alright and never really went everywhere. I think he was better than people gave him credit. Rick Ross's Tight, sick feature. Vince Staples, Earl, like these are pretty cool people that Mac works with. But yeah, Macadelic for me is when Mac really started to get into a stride, and then like I said, Faces is my favorite project for Mac Miller. If you have not heard any of these, highly recommend going on Dat Piff and checking them out. I hope the family puts them on streaming services as time progresses, because I think that's dope. And I think they made it deluxe, if I'm not mistaken. Like they added more to it. But yeah, and then I distinctly remember a police officer who came to talk to my class that was shitting on Mac Miller's drug phase. And I say this to you smoking a joint, but that's like this is when a lot of the suburbs stopped respecting Mac Miller. I think Mac Miller was this kid from high school for a really long time. 2013, 2014, maybe even 2012, he started to change into a more artistic path, and it wasn't as like poppy. He was making pop rap, arguably. He was like Asher Roth level and around Kids. And if you notice, that's what a lot of people from the suburbs really remember about Mac Miller as Kids. And I think people who actually respect Mac Miller for the culture actually do respect a lot of his later discography. I mean, watching Movies with the Sound Off has Earl again. It's got Action Bronson, which is cool. Schoolboy Q again. Then you go to something like Good AM to follow that up, and I think working with like Absol, Lil B, Miguel, Chief Keef, for the most part, he's good at carrying a project himself too. Like, he is capable of carrying a project without too many features, which a lot of artists rely on features for a lot of their success. But like, in a way, everybody's got to, right? Like, carry a project by yourself is where it comes the talent of an artist. That's when an artist becomes an artist, not just a guy who makes music. But I mean, when you start seeing who Mac Miller was surrounded with on the Double XL, you got like Big Crit, you got like Diggy Simmons, right? Kendrick Lamar, YG, Meek Mill, Lil Twist, Yellow Wolf, Sci-Hi, Fred the Godson. But like, again, it's pretty good company to have been maintaining himself around. Like, he could have easily been one of those people that fell off, but he did not. He just made different music and evolved. And obviously, as we get closer to the end of his life, maybe, we got Divine Feminine in 2016, which had people like Kendrick Lamar on it, had Ariana Grande, Njosma, Ty Dolla $ign, Anderson .Paak. There's a lot of important people that work with Mac Miller, and are people who are for the culture that work with Mac Miller, that they don't work with everybody. He's definitely meeting a certain criteria as who he is and breaking new ground for who he is. As you turn into Swimming, he doesn't even rely on features at all, but I think it's an okay project for Mac Miller. I think when you turn to something like, now that's not to say it's bad, but I don't think he did anything quite groundbreaking in Swimming that he did in Circles. I think Circles was completely groundbreaking for what it would be, and I think them being released as a dual project makes sense, but it is the best mixed project I've ever heard in my life. It is unbelievably solid front to back, and it's exactly what you'd want out of a Mac Miller project, while being new and different and singing and like breaking into different ground in just what he makes and him being who he was. Considering what he made Circles and what he made Kids in 10 years, you know what I mean? Like, that's 10 years of progression, and you literally get to see that front to back, you know? Like, his very short 10-year career had a lot of growth and progression, and it's something that I personally admire drastically, which is why he shows up in my top 5, maybe absent of someone like an Eminem. I think right now in my brain, Mac Miller is one of the most influential people. I mean, that thumbnail is the 5 most influential people to my music for sure. So to follow that up, for me, it's Black Thought. Them getting that late night gig just solidified them as mainstream people that you need to check out. And when you look at their run just in the 90s in general, they own 96 to 99 to me, maybe even 94 to 99. Do You Want More, Half-Life, and Things Fall Apart are 3 of the best hip-hop projects of that era. And to be honest, and as you look as they grow through it, I think a lot of their later discography is underappreciated as well. Granted, I'm not turning it back as much as I turn back those 3 albums, and like the John Legend collab is dope. Again, I would put Black Thought in there for me just because his lyricism, his ability, rhyme schemes, everything is clearly some of the more influential. Like, he is one of those old heads that is clearly influential in everybody who is making rap music right now, whether it be subconscious or present conscious. And he's now again solidified the roots and that band being what they were. Again, like being an entire band, I had to soloistically take out Black Thought as the best rapper. Collectives are hard to explain, but can't really talk about Black Thought without talking about the roots as a whole. And to be honest, I really appreciate Streams of Thought, like that whole project line as well. And honestly, Black Thought collaborates with a lot of people whom you would expect Black Thought to collaborate with. Still, in my opinion, he has good taste. A lot of old heads lose taste, but Black Thought's cosign still means something even now. I think he has to be in the GOAT conversation. And like I said, he's tremendously influential in how I think and how I rap. Just his patternistics, his style, incredibly influential to me. But yeah, I think Black Thought is far too important to the transitional period of hip-hop, and one of those old heads who actually knows what he's talking about, actually does his research, actually believes in what he believes in, and carries on that legacy of traditional hip-hop. I think he's one of the more important older heads on this list, and I don't see him getting nearly enough love either. Thus, I put him in my top 5. Mac Miller number 5, Black Thought number 4. Going into number 3 is maybe a little bit more of a controversial pick. Third best rapper of all time, I have Jay-Z. A lot of people put Jay-Z at number 1. Being from New Jersey, very close to New York, I could understand why a lot of people near me especially would put him so high. His discography is pretty much unmatched. His ability to write hits is pretty much unmatched. His lyricism and everything that he does is so perfect. It's really hard to not put him at number 1, but his ability also to increase in status almost every year, even though at the moment, and to increase in status every year, maybe not even just musically, but as a businessman will increase your music as well. And that's something a lot of older head rappers started doing, was CEOing and trying to be owners of a business rather than just their music. Once you reach a certain point, you just will do that whenever you want. So like you'll chart, you'll reach a certain status. Once you reach a certain status, like you'll always go number 1. Sometimes you just are that iconic, and Jay-Z is that iconic. Now the reason he's at number 3 is maybe personal taste. While everything that he does, again, to a certain degree is perfect in my opinion, he sometimes doesn't hit a whole lot of different stuff, whereas I feel like the next 2 people that I'm about to name maybe have a little bit more diversity in their discography. And for better or for worse, diversity is good. Diversity could be really bad because people could really be into something that you make but not really into something else that you make. Diversity could also be good because if people are into both, then you can pretty much continuously keep doing both things, or maybe now even more things. My number 1 and my number 2, I feel like try more things than Jay-Z. I think Jay-Z tries stuff when it comes to a business, and I think that's equally as smart. But if we're going down to rapping, I think you got to leave business aside to some aspects. I think business is important. I think that status is important, and your ability to grow is important. I'm coming down to musical tastes on this list, which is why you see people like Black Thought and Mac Miller in here. So I'm gonna give Jay-Z the number 3 spot. Jay-Z kind of goes without saying at this point. He's reached to that certain ability. I feel like the only thing I really need to really commentate on is why I'm not putting him number 1. You know, I could rotate any of my top 3 really for anybody else in the top 3. Like my top 3, I could 100,000% see any of these people and why you would put them in the GOAT conversation. Hard Knock Life Volume 2, 3, Blueprint 2, Black Album. Maybe we won't acknowledge Unfinished Business anymore. And then American Gangster, like, oh my god. 444 also was just reaffirming that he's still absolutely got an ability to do that, since like, and that's an even longer reign. Like but that's from 1996 to 2017. He's been running music. Like that's a long time. Could absolutely see it in the GOAT conversation, but if it comes down to personal taste, Jay-Z's number 3 for me. The reason that is because my number 2, I'm a Kanye boy. I like Ye. What can I say? I really like Kanye West. I think his ability to try new things, like Jay-Z is a mentally stable businessman. Kanye is an artist to me. I think there is always a little bit of crazy in artistry. I think there's certain degrees of crazy that maybe are more effed up. We're just looking at Kanye West musically. College Dropout's a classic. Late Registration for me is okay, but it's still like, it's still kind of like, oh my god, it's still Kanye. Like there's so many great songs on this, but like Kanye Sanders' Late Registration to me is okay. The Waits changed the game. Graduation's incredible. I like Dark Twisted Fantasy a lot. I think after following 808, you could see where maybe it was a little bit of a regression sonically, because he did something so groundbreaking just 2 years prior and at such a pivotal moment in his life that now it's kind of like it was almost a regression of Ye, and it's almost a lot like current Ye, but I don't necessarily. I like the project a lot. I think the narrative for the entire thing is incredible. Half these I have on vinyl. Watch the Throne goes back to Jay-Z as well, but I actually, especially when you put them side to side, I actually kind of prefer Kanye sometimes, just because he's such a loose cannon. Yeezus for me is a little bit of a miss. I'm not a huge fan of Yeezus. The Life of Pablo is great. Ye is great. Kids See Ghosts is great, and then Jesus is King we won't talk about. I mean, there's even still though, there are still moments on Jesus is King. Like that's like the fact that I'm saying that's kind of nuts. I would never like a project like that prior anyway. So that's a 2004 to 2017 run. So maybe a little bit not as long as Jay-Z, obviously, because of Jay-Z and Kanye West's relationship. It's still a long time for Kanye West to be running the game, in my opinion, and really only having like a miss or two. He's had such an incredible stretch. It seems like he's not even going to stop making music, whereas I feel like Jay-Z takes long times to make music, especially recently. I just prefer Kanye and his performance to Jay-Z's performance. But all that is aside for 2 and 3, because my number 1, my greatest rapper of all time, my personal favorite rapper of all time, is Andre 3000. If you look at Outkast's discography, again, I'm obviously a huge fan of Outkast's discography. I think of every rap group, it has the least misses for sure. Their run is unmatched as far as commercial ability of what they were creating. I think Players Ball is underrated. Southern Playlistic is underrated as well. All these have such hits on them that like no real hip hop head I've noticed on Twitter like fucking talks about Outkast as much. I mean, Pigeons and Planes is a little over the top with Outkast, but there's not a whole lot of people really giving Outkast their dues, and in my opinion, especially Andre 3000, and for reasons I'll get into, but again, AT ATLians. I don't think Outkast really missed for the better part of, I think from 1994 to 2003, inarguably, Outkast didn't miss. I don't think you could listen to all of these projects and tell me that they weren't good. Southern Playlistic is incredible. I think ATLians is incredible. I think Aquemini is incredible. I think Stankonia is incredible. And I think Speakerboxxx and The Love Below is incredible, inarguably. If you argue with me on that, I think you're just straight up wrong. It is something to my core belief. That's why I have to give it such credit and give Andre such credit. Now, Big Boy obviously deserves a lot of credit in Outkast as well, but of the two, like I said, it's hard to pick with groups, but of the two, I definitely prefer Andre 3000. So I would put all of Outkast in the number one spot, whereas maybe I would put all of the Roots in Black Thought's spot, but Andre is my favorite rapper, pretty much without a doubt, because I prefer what he brings to the table next to Big Boy on all of these projects, especially when it's so parallel next to Big Boy on like the Speakerboxxx and The Love Below. And I can understand being mid about Idlewild, and I can understand being mid about Players Ball, but I still think both of those projects are very good, and you can't really dismiss them either. Maybe not on their hit statuses, but it is still like unmatched in my opinion. And that's from 1994 to 2003, having, in my opinion, dropping 5 classic albums, and everything else that they've done, you can't take it away from Outkast. Outkast is the greatest rap group of all time. I think Andre is the GOAT. And I even take that all into account, right? What Andre has done post-rap and what he's done to bring up other artists and his features still are some of the more valuable things in hip-hop. But yeah, I think Outkast is the greatest rap group of all time, and Andre 3000 is the greatest rapper of all time. Let me know if you guys agree with me below. Andre's ability to be like an executive head on any song, and Andre's ability to be just a man in the room that you want, like even for like Kendrick Lamar and people who are even the big thing now, I think you can't take it away from him. He is the most influential rapper, especially when you look at Kendrick. I think Andre is probably the closest person to Kendrick right now. But yeah, let me know if you guys agree with me below, and I guess I will talk to y'all on another day or two. I don't know. I mean, I'm uploading these every other day, right? I don't know.